All right. Good evening, live Wednesday night here with the sickness. What's up, guys?
What's happening? How's it going? Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, so if you guys don't know, this is Joel Willert and Greg Mansfield, originally from Minnesota. At least that's where they kind of got their start fishing-wise that I know of. And now you guys are kind of all over the place. Home base is somewhere between Minnesota and Kansas and everywhere in between, right?
That's it, especially this year. I mean, we're going to be on the road a bunch. I still call Minnesota home. I still got a place up there, Prior Lake, but I'm on the road more than I'm back in Minnesota. So,
despite the rumors, Greg's garage is not your primary residence.
I mean, I do have a camper just behind the garage over there. That's probably 50% of my residence.
So the mailman probably thinks this is his residence too, because of
at
all
least the tackle warehouse guy.
So.
The tackle warehouse believes it's your primary residence.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Well, awesome. All right, we got a few guys rolling in. What's up, Shadow? What's up, Tom? Good to see you guys tonight. Let us know how the audio is on both ends. I invested in a mic, so we have a new mic here. We've got a fresh backdrop, lots of new things, some extra lighting here in the studio. So let us know if the improvements are coming through for you visually and audio wise. So love to hear, make sure everything sounds good. Hopefully the people that listen to the podcast version down the road appreciate the microphone. All right. So they say it sounds good. Well, for those that you guys don't know, Greg and Joel have been kind of fishing tournaments together. I guess, I don't know, officially, unofficially for a while, but this past year, 2020, you guys kind of cemented it into, I don't know, more of an official venture or a project with the YouTube channel and the sickness. Where did that all, maybe just give us a little, just kind of high level back history of how you got to where you were at the start of last year.
I'm going to take the lead to it. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, Joel and I traveled together fishing. I did the tour for a year and did the Opens for a year when Joel was just kind of getting started on the national scene. He traveled and fished as a co-angler with me. I kicked my butt out of the back of the boat a bunch of times, which was, good for him. Launched his career. It's always humbling when some guy's kicking the butt out of the back of the boat. But, we had a good time traveling, and that went well. And then I really took a year off. I'm late 30s. I got a family, 6-year-old, 3-year-old kid. And for me personally, at the beginning of last year, I was really trying to make a decision whether I wanted to do national tournament bass fishing or not. And I was at a point where I knew the amount of work it was going to take to get from where I was to where I need to be at the elite level. And once you've seen it and you know the amount of work, that's a tough decision to make. And that's kind of where I was at. And it timed up well with some of the change in the fishing industry. And Joel and I kind of got to talking, and both of us had a passion for trying to make the Bassmaster Elite Series. It was kind of a dream for both of us. We had a goal of wanting to fish a classic or to try to win a classic. And so a lot of that stuff started lining up. We knew we could travel well together. And when I realized that's what Joel wanted to do too, and we figured out a way that we could partner and travel together, that takes a lot of the burden out of it. So at the beginning of last year, I made that decision. I said, if I'm going to do this now, I'm 38 at the time, 39 now. I need to do this 100% all in, right? Now I can't, it's no more toe in the water. It's time to do it or not do it. And when we decided to go all in, we knew that we needed to we saw the way it's going with social media. And we knew that we needed to have some kind of a brand and YouTube presence that we could work on as a kind of more like a team than just our own brands. And that's where we came up with the sickness. I'll give a little bit of an intro to what we did with the sickness and then let Joel take a little bit of what he sees from it. But actually a cool story for the sickness. So I've got a good buddy from back in high school that is a head baseball coach took over a Division II school out in Colorado School of Mines. And I think the way that I understand this story in the short order was they basically hadn't won a baseball game in 50 years. He takes over the program, and within 2 years, they're in the Division II World Series. They're competing, and I believe the year after he left Colorado School of Mines, I think they won it. And so they came over to the house to see us. We hung out for a night, and I just asked him, as I love studying excellence in any way that I can. I asked him, I was like, "How did you do that, man? Like, that's incredible to take over a program like that." And he goes, "Well, It's real simple, and it's one thing. When I recruit kids, I don't look for people that have been successful before. I look for kids that have the sickness. And I went, well, I don't know what that means, but can you explain it? And he goes, nobody really knew what it means when I said it. But he goes, I'm wanting kids that had to scrap, fight, and claw for everything they've ever had. And they've got a gene almost from birth that they hate losing more than they like winning. And they will compete with everything they have. It doesn't matter if they're playing cribbage or if they're playing a board game or if they're playing tiddlywinks or they're fishing or they're whatever they're doing. They just want to compete at everything they do, and they can't stand to lose. And I went, I know exactly what that means, because, I got kicked out of 4th grade one time because I was being too competitive with the other kids in the class, right? So it's just kind of in your blood, and that's where that kind of come from. And I got to telling Joel that story, and I don't know if you want to jump in from that.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the more like I've kind of studied it and kind of realized what he was talking about. I mean, it's really anybody that's fishing these national tournaments or just, fishing in general. It seems that you see it more and more. People have the sickness. They hate losing more than they like actually winning. It's the competitiveness side of them. And I'm the same way, man. I mean, if Greg and I play cribbage, I will not lose that game. And if I do, it ruins my day. It ruins my night. So it's just, we both got it.
Pretty common.
Yeah. And it's not common, but, it's kind of weird. We thought we kind of talked about it, and we're like, that'd be a great name for a YouTube channel. It's kind of what we both believe in. And then obviously this whole pandemic thing hit in the beginning of the year when we started to fire it up. So people are kind of like, what is a sickness? What's going on with that? But, it has nothing to do with COVID-19. It has nothing to do with the pandemic. It's, it's just.
We actually had to rebrand right after that. And we kind of added the fish symbol to the sickness, and we added the outdoor name word underneath it. So, that was kind of a little road bump. But I mean, what in life where you don't hit road bumps? Hey, let's start a YouTube channel and get it rolling. And then, by the way, a pandemic's going to hit that's going to, basically make fun of the name you picked for it when it started. So just another road bump to overcome for it. But I mean, the other thing with the sickness too, I think that we wanted to mention when we were talking about this ahead of time, was it's also just the passion for the outdoors. I think uniquely in fishing or hunting, most people can relate to when you're little, or at some point when you go out and catch a fish for the first time, or you go hunting and get that experience with somebody for the first time, you get, it's almost a lifelong passion that you can't kick. And I think that was another meaning for the name that we thought was cool, that we thought could work with this too. So we're hoping to grow that brand a lot in the next few years, and, having a lot of fun with it. So.
Yeah, that's cool. And so did you guys, so first of all, who's better at cribbage, you guys or Sam Sobey?
I've never lost in cribbage.
I mean, you can't. I don't know if you can see him from here, but there's a lot of $20 bills stapled up there that's got Sobey's name on it. And I think if he was here, he would agree that he's got a little work to do there.
Yeah, him and B-Rock lost pretty good one night. So
nice. So they probably made that back in editing, but
no. We have a funny joke with him. Actually, his wife beats him, or his girlfriend, right?
Yeah, Steph. Yep.
Steph, whoever Steph is to Sobey, sorry about that. But I think she's beaten him like 15 times in a row, and he just keeps texting us, this terrible mad emojis with hands of cribbage, because she keeps beating him and he can't stand it. And he's like, what did I do to the cribbage gods? And I'm like, I don't know, dude. Sorry, man.
Can't be good at everything. Cool. Let's see. Looks like Kelly's chiming in here.
It's true.
That's a good woman. It's a good woman right there.
Ooh, Dawson's even chiming in on his thoughts on your guys' cribbage skills. So there you go.
He has Austin has. I will admit, a couple times Austin has got the better of me.
That probably has more to do with sorcery than actual skill.
I'd agree. Harry Potter, something in there, some sorcery involved.
Nice. So, did you guys kind of decide, like, how did you? I mean, you guys just decided you were going to do the channel. Obviously you brought in some other people to help you with the channel. How did that really all come together? Like, was it just kind of on the fly, or did you like put together the framework before you started the brand and the channel? How did that all come together?
You can take that.
Well, I mean, it was kind of really on the fly. I mean, we saw that if we, most successful bass fishermen out there have either a YouTube following or a good social media following. And obviously with sponsors and that kind of stuff, it's such a big thing these days that you need to have. So, we we kind of winged it earlier this year, and we talked about it, doing a YouTube channel. I mean, it's cool that 20, 30, 40 years down the road we'll be able to look back and look at how many times we messed up in a tournament or how many fish we missed. But it's cool to look back, and it's cool to show people that don't get to go out and do this stuff every day, kind of what we're doing out on the road, the good, the bad, the ugly, and all that out there. And it's Sobe. Obviously, we've known Sobe for a while. He's a Minnesota boy, and he's been in the YouTube scene for a long time, knows a lot of stuff. And we thought it'd be a great opportunity to ask him if he wanted to kind of travel along and do the co-angler thing like he did this year, and help us out and get us started. And I don't know much about YouTube or computers or technology or any of that kind of stuff. And Greg knows more than I do, but we need a good jump start from Sobe, and he definitely was able to help us out at the beginning of this year. So,
yeah, I mean, we knew it was going to be a long haul too. I think we planned on a 2 to 3 year period before we would really have a baked product here that we would feel comfortable, really putting us in a good spot. We knew it'd be a long kind of battle to get it up and going. And from my previous business career, I'm used to asking people for help. It's one of the ways I've been successful in business is learning from the people who are the very best at what they do. Like I was talking about asking a baseball coach, how did you turn that baseball program around? I've done that my whole life. I really like learning from people that are smarter, better than me. And when we jumped into this, man, I knew at 38 years old, I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm sure Joel felt the same way. We knew we needed to do it. And so to have a relationship or a connection with somebody like Sobe, being from the same area as we're from, it was a little bit of luck, a little bit of help. And then things just lined up right that at least, we could get a kickstart. And you can see if you look back at some of this first stuff we're doing, there was a learning curve, and we'll continue to learn over the next few years and try and improve. But, we owe Sam a big thank you for getting us kickstarted, if that makes sense.
Cool. Yeah, for sure. So how did you end up picking Kansas as your new hub, Greg?
So I have spent about half my life in Minnesota, in the cities area, and I've spent about half my life here around the Kansas City area. So see the Chiefs jersey. I'm about a 60% Vikings fan, 40% Chiefs fan. It's just these days it's a lot easier to be a Chiefs fan with all the stuff going on with both teams, but it still bleed a little more purple than I would red. So I've really split my life here. I'm really kind of almost equal. And Kelly's folks, I actually met my wife in a small town called Abilene, Kansas. And I'm from here originally. So, Kansas City is kind of home. I went to the University of Kansas too, is where I went to college. So this kind of made sense for a long-term place. She wanted to be closer to her folks too. I think once we had kids, which I'm definitely grateful for the help whenever we get it from her folks. And from a tournament perspective, Kansas City is actually a really good hub. I mean, we got a lot of access to the interstate system here that gets me anywhere I need to go. And I mean, it's 7 hours closer every direction, both ways from when I used to drive back to Minnesota all the time. So I'm not complaining about the money savings. And this just kind of made sense for us to put down roots here and just south of Kansas City.
Yeah, very cool. So we haven't, you guys both have some, I think, FLW tour experience in the past, right? If I remember correctly. Different levels of success, different years. But last year, you guys both decided the Bassmaster Opens, right, was going to be the deal. And that kind of rolls back into the sickness and the black and blue is that you really wanted, to chase, I think, like in your videos, in the intros a lot of times, right, the blue trophies, right? So what, I guess, let's maybe so you guys both fished all 8 Opens last year, traveled together, did them all. I kind of like followed along to the channel a little bit. I mean, I kind of follow a lot of the Minnesota guys in the Opens, right? Kind of scrolling through, checking out how guys are doing. Joel and I have actually fished against each other a few times in the old Panaprog and a few local tournaments back in the day. It's just kind of laughing. I was like, maybe we should start the podcast with like a cast for cast breakdown of the 2013 Panaprog tournament or something.
That's right.
I think you guys, you kind of were hovering around, right? I mean, you kind of like, you're always kind of in striking difference, but never really had like the breakout performance that you really needed to kind of like make the jump and really get into it. Is kind of what it felt like. You were always like a couple of fish from really being like, in the tournament and a couple of fish from being out of the tournament. I mean, that's kind of the way the Opens are, right? I mean, like it's a tough fishery. I mean, maybe what were some of your highlights, some of the biggest challenges? What were your biggest learnings maybe that you can take into the 2020 season?
Go.
Well, I mean, you're dead. That was a really accurate description. We were just talking the other day, like we didn't ever make a top 12, and we didn't ever have that one or two breakout performances you need to probably qualify for the Elite Series. And but we were also right there. Austin, if Austin's still on here, I traveled a year with Austin back when my co-angler days, 6 or 7 years ago, and something that resonated with me that he said then was, when you start to really get to feel like you belong or to be better in bass fishing is when you don't bomb anymore. So for me, that was a big deal this year, was just I don't ever bombed a tournament. Even when things went wrong, you still find a way. You still know you have enough experience and your instincts start to tell you how to at least go survive. And that, that kind of takes over. It just takes time to hone that. So that was a big thing this year, is continuing to kind of learn how to not have those really bad tournaments. And I still just need that one breakout, I think, to have that big one. And I'm hoping to be able to do that in 2021. I'm going to have 15 opportunities at it. Hopefully it'd have more than one if things continue to go well. But, I feel like in 2020 was the first time I felt confident on the water, particularly towards the end of the year, to just let my instincts tell me what to go do. And that's a good feeling. And it's come from 7 years of misery and working your butt off trying to get through the stuff. So I don't know. I probably didn't do a great job of answering that question, but when you were mentioning kind of some things that we learned this year, one of the things I debriefed after the season was feeling confident, kind of getting rid of those really big bombs, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, kind of the same way for me. I mean, I got so much to learn out there. I mean, honestly, I haven't been at it very long. I fished as a couple of years as a co-angler. I mean, I only fished, I think, 2 Bassmaster Opens as a co-angler. I fished a season of the FLW Tour as a co. Had a good year, qualified to go to the front of the boat, fished my first season nationally as a FLW Tour pro a couple years ago, 2 years ago, I guess, and had a good year. I mean, I never had a real good tournament. I made a couple top 30s, made the FLW Cup, but there's just so much to learn out there with every one of these bodies of water. And it seemed like this year, every body of water, except a couple that we went to, I've never been to, so I still ride around on the water out there and ask myself, do I really know what I'm doing out here? Like, I feel like I'm completely lost. The biggest thing, like Greg said, is, we didn't really have any bombs. We had a couple bad tournaments. I had a couple bad tournaments, the last one of the year at Lay Lake. I mean, I needed a good finish, kind of gambled, whatever, and ended up in 100th place, whatever it was. But, overall, I mean, it's such a fine line from, having a really good tournament and a really bad tournament, and just getting one big bite or 2 big bites versus not getting that big bite. So, overall, I mean, it was a good year, but, we just, there's a few times like at Rayburn, I had a good finish there, top 20 finish, but just didn't get a big bite, I had consistent bites, but just never got a big one. That's what you need to get up there and have a real good tournament, getting those top 12s. But, overall, I mean, it was consistent. I was happy with the year. Wish it was obviously a little bit better, because I'd be getting ready to go to the Elite Series if I had a few more good ones. But, it's a learning curve. And, every time you're on the water, it's just, I'm still learning so much. Every time I'm on the water, every tournament, I can look back and just realize what I should have done or what I should have done different, or how I should have tackled, the water versus not. And then, of course, this year, with the pandemic and the COVID and everything else, these bodies of water, we're fishing them in the fall. I've never fished in the fall in the South. I had no idea what to expect or what to do. So I just seemed like every tournament I was looking around for brush piles and throwing a dang drop shot in there. So I know a drop shot can get bit anywhere you go in the country. So nice. It was more of a struggle for me this year, it seemed like, than it was to just go out and figure out how to catch fish. So,
which I think you may find in the future that this is a blessing, right? Like going through this process, going through this grind. I think more oftentimes not, the angler that has one good season in one division and pops off a couple of good tournaments and makes it really early are oftentimes the people that flame out at the tour level really quickly, because they really weren't prepared. So I think if it takes 1, 2, or 3 seasons to get there, but when you do it, you are really ready. That's, because the financial commitment gets so much more steep at the next level, that it's better to get there the right way and when you're prepared than I think to just rush it. I don't know if that makes sense or if you guys agree.
Yeah, no, that's total. I mean, that's totally dead on. And it's not just the fishing either. It's the traveling, understanding the traveling, the logistics of everything. Knowing, like, we camp. Obviously, we got campers. Figuring out that whole process behind just the fishing. I mean, if you can figure out everything else and be completely dialed in your logistics and knowing where you're going, the camping thing, that's going to make everything easier being on the water and not having, all those thoughts in the back of your head. Like, man, I got to go and do this or that when I get off the water today. It's all a big, it all works together, and being able to get that experience, versus just, if I went out there, my first year and qualified and just jumped into the big leagues and fishing against the top guys. I mean, man, it's a tough road. Not that it can't be done, but it's definitely got to be a tough road.
Yeah. The other thing you mentioned, Greg, was, eliminating the bombs and being more consistent, which is important. But I think to some degree, sometimes that's contradictory to winning, right? So
yeah,
I think,
it is.
Almost the mindset you need to make the elites is not the same mindset you necessarily need once you get to the elites, if that makes sense. Like, because, a top 50% finish in the elites gets you paid and makes you money. A top 50%
and it makes the classic probably.
Right. And the top 50% in the opens is an L, right? Like, from a payback standpoint, like, you're not going to get a check. You know what I mean? So it's like a completely different mindset. But the thing is, like, if you're fishing locally in the opens, or you're just fishing a series or jackpotting, then you have to have the mindset that you don't care how bad you finish. You're trying to win it, finish in the top 5 to make any money. So, it's kind of a different animal. So let's kind of fast forward. The reason I really wanted to talk to you guys is you guys have ambitious plans for 2021. And for those that maybe don't follow you guys or aren't familiar with you guys, my understanding is you're fishing all 3 divisions of the opens this year. So that's 9 Bassmaster Open tournaments. And then you're stacking the new National Professional Fishing League. I think I got that right. 6, high dollar, close to tour level events. It's kind of we'll see where that really falls out. So you're fishing 15 big money tournament events this year. There's probably some other guys doing it, but these you two are the first that came to mind that I knew of and that I knew that have some experience. So what drove that? What made the decision? I mean, obviously you talked about this sickness and the black and blue. It was pretty much a given that you guys were going to fish, 2 or 3 divisions of the opens. What made you decide to stack the league on top of the opens? Because you can't make the elites through the league. So maybe expand on that, or what was the process or the thought process for that?
I'm going to hop in first on this one.
Yeah, whatever.
Probably might be a little bit different for the two of us. But we've both probably arrived at the same place. Maybe through different ways, but I'm 39 years old. I paid my dues. I'm 6-7 years into traveling nationally. I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. So I can see the writing on the wall in the future as those boys grow up. There's going to be more sports, more things where I'm going to want to be here and not be able to do things like this. So, within the next 10 years, that's coming. So I have a short window here where I need to take advantage of the work I've put in for 6 years, and I want to be on the road and fish. And we've got young boys, my wife, I've got a great support system, so I can be on the road and travel. She's up for the adventure and a big supporter, so that's a huge help. And I just want to fish. I want to be on the road and I want to fish, and I want to get as much experience as I can and really try to make a run at the Elite Series. The problem is, the Bassmaster Opens, you hear this even from a lot of the head bass, guys, is the Opens are like purgatory for bass fishing, right? Like, it's exciting and it's fun, but you can't make any money, and you can't, unless you win, you make the classic or you qualify for the elites. It's really not a great financial venture by any means. So, we're kind of in this purgatory. And so when you have another opportunity pop up that says they're not going to compete with the opens, they're not trying that their target angler is somebody that would do the opens to try to make the Elite Series. and you have that, and there's a decent payout. I've already fished at the tour level and cashed a check there. I feel comfortable at this point that we can compete at that after this last season. It's, you got multiple motivations for me, really. Financially, it gives me a chance to make some money. And I have a short window here where I need to go out and I need to fish as much as I can while I can, and gain as much experience too, so that within the next couple of years, when I make the elites, hopefully, I'm able to compete there as well and make some classics, which is a big, goal, life dream of mine here at this point for a fishing career. Kind of haven't gotten into this. So does that kind of make sense what I'm saying there?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll let Joel kind of speak for him on.
Yeah. I mean, Greg kind of hit it. I mean, opportunity, obviously I want to make the Bassmaster Elite Series, fishing all 9. The NPFL is, it's opportunity, to make more money. We're going to be on the road. We're going to be traveling a lot anyhow. They're not conflicting with the Bassmaster Open schedules and exposure. I mean, they got 3 days of live coverage. They got trailered weigh-ins. Be able to drive a truck and boat to the weigh-ins. It's just everything we looked at it, from the standpoint of how it's going to fit into our schedule. It worked out good. And, we talked about it and said, let's just, if we're going to go all in and be traveling the country, I mean, we're leaving here, middle of February, and we're going to be on the road until I think middle of June. And then we get a little bit of a break. And then basically I think the middle of July all the way until the end of October, we're going to be back on the road. So, we're going to be traveling all over. We're going to be on the road. And, what's 6 more tournaments? I mean, it's we're going to be going past those lakes. I mean, a lot of the
entry fees, no big deal, right?
But, but a lot of the lakes, I'm just looking at the schedule here now. I mean, a lot of the lakes that we're fishing in the Opens, or a few of the lakes that we're fishing in the Opens, are fishing in the NPFL as well. So, Harris Chain for one, Pickwick. So, it'll be good. I mean, we're going to be on Harris Chain early in the year. I think early March, or is it early March?
Yeah, first
February?
tournament, early Open.
Yeah, I don't even remember now. For the Open, and then we go back there, I think in May or June for the NPFL. So, it's one of those things where, we're going to feel comfortable and with fishing, just time in the water. The worst I ever do is when I go fishing and I take time off and then try to get back in the water and get back in the swing of things.
Yeah,
if I can just keep going, stay on the road and just, keep going and going and going, it seems to work best for me. So it's going to be a busy year, but man, I'm looking forward to it.
And the NPFL is doing a lot right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be some hiccups and there's going to be some problems, but the trailered weigh-in thing is cool. Be able to, for exposure, they're talking about having the final day, actually having live music and food at the events and trying to make it a fan-friendly affair, which I have always wondered why other organizations don't try to do a better job for fan-friendly type environments the last day to draw. Obviously, as this last year's not really a great example with COVID, but
right.
Going forward, I've kind of always wondered about that. I mean, they brought in some good media personalities, and I think they're doing a lot that'll allow us to get some exposure and have a little fun this year and see what happens. And I'm sure there'll be some hiccups, but so far I kind of like the model. And I mean, they're literally marketing to guys like us that are fishing the Opens, trying to make it. So.
Yeah, Tom says you guys. He sounds like John Cox. What's 6 more tournaments, right? Like that's
well, I mean, it's a lot. Obviously, it's a big commitment, but I mean, looking at the schedule, we actually just started booking all of our campgrounds this year.
Today we started booking them.
Yeah, and looking at the campgrounds, I mean, we obviously start down in the south in the wintertime, January, February. And we started working our way up, and the same with the NPFL. We're working down south and slowly working our way back up north when we can fish up in the northern part of the country. So, we're going to be it's a lot of travel, and there's some we're going to be crisscrossing and that kind of stuff. But when we're on the road, instead of driving back from Lake Norman, North Carolina, all the way back to Minnesota, or all the way back to Kansas, if we can just go to another tournament and then back to another tournament anyhow, I mean, it just kind of made sense to us. Instead of, there's going to be just as much travel going from wherever we are for the Opens all the way back home and back versus just going to another tournament, right, for one of the NPFL events. So it kind of makes sense when we look at it logistically.
for sure. And does the league have any off limits, or is it kind of open like the Opens as far
there is off limits. Jan 1, everything was off limits as far as information. There's a 30-day off limit where we can't be on the water, and then there's a
small restricted period. It's not really relevant with the no information rule.
Yeah.
So it kind of sets up like a major national tournament trail. You can't get any information from anybody, and you can't. And there's an off limits period where you can't be on the water. So it should set up to be a pretty fair fight.
So you're going to get a couple days of official practice.
We'll have 3 days of official practice, 1 off day, media day, meeting day, and then the tournaments, everybody fishes all 3 days.
Which I think is another great thing. We're going to be there for all these. It's more time on the water for us to learn what happens on day 3 when 125 guys been beating on them for 2 days. That's another thing at the elite level. You start dealing with 4-day tournaments instead of just 2 or 3, and how the fish react to that. I think it's just another learning experience this year. So.
Yeah, and I hadn't really thought about that, and really didn't really know what, but having that official practice will really, I don't know, if you do well in the Opens like you hope to do, that getting into that mode will help you prepare, because that's the kind of style you're going to have once you make the elites. And obviously you guys have seen that a little bit on the FLW tour.
Not a 63-day practice that you can do for the Opens if you want.
Yeah, exactly.
I never, when I fished a tour, the FLW tour, we had 3 days of practice, an off day, and then the tournament. And honestly, I didn't realize that. I think that helped. I felt comfortable doing it, and it didn't give me an opportunity to go out there for a week and spread myself out and get so much stuff in my head. Yeah, I got a bite way up on this part of the lake, way down in that part. It kind of taught me how to get into an area, get some bites, and then really figure it out during the tournament. For me, it helps. Everybody's a little bit different, but I kind of like those short practices, those 3-day practices, have an off day, let those fish relax, go in there, and then actually figure out what you found. Opening the present is what we call it. You get to go out there day 1 of the tournament, open the present, really figure out what you found, and start. The first day of the tournaments is kind of another practice day where you get to really lean on them and figure out what you found and start expanding from there. So I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to it. I think it sets up good for how I like to fish and how I like to practice. And, I think it'll be a good thing.
Yeah. And I think if you're the type of angler that thrives on being on the water and staying sharp, it makes a ton of sense. I think there's kind of 2 types of anglers out there. There's the people that like the grind keeps them in, like John Cox, right? And there's others like that. Or maybe like Ish Monroe and Hackney, when they used to fish the 2 tours, they kind of thrived on that kind of stuff. And then there's the other anglers that they thrive on taking 3 weeks to go hunting and completely disconnecting, and they come back fresh, right? So I think it depends on your approach, but if that works for you, I think it makes a lot of sense to stay sharp. David says, go for it, guys. You don't want to look back. And Dermot says he actually believes the league's going to be a huge success, and so jumping on early isn't a bad idea. So, yeah, I think I see some ththings. Obviously, starting a new league with any kind of venture is always, part of you thinks of the XFL or things like that, right? And then, but there's plenty of reasons to think that it could be successful. So it'll be really interesting to follow along, regardless, to see how it goes. And having some people we know in it, and that we know some of that backstory, will make it more interesting to follow for sure.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it. We're looking forward to it, and obviously they're going to have hiccups like any business ever starting up. You're always going to have hiccups, and it's to be expected. But with the we've talked to the ownership group, and they all seem like they got a real great head on the shoulders. They're looking forward to it. They know exactly what they have. They have a good game plan, and we think it's a good opportunity for us for what we're trying to do, and we're going to go out there and just go try to catch a bass at the end of the day.
Sure, absolutely. Going into, do you plan, channel-wise, do you plan to do videos for all 15, kind of like you did last year for the 8?
Yeah, I think we've enjoyed kind of segmenting our content into different, kind of different groupings. We had the Black and Blue series, which we'll do season 2 next year. We actually, this weekend, we're we've spent 3 weeks kind of producing a season recap and a kind of a little hype video for 2021 and coming soon. We're going to release that this weekend and then get ready to start filming and do Black and Blue season 2. That was a lot of fun. We don't know what we're going to name the series yet for the NPFL. It'll be something about the league, something about, new beginnings. We'll come up with a story. I think YouTube, one of the best things about doing it is being able to tell that little story and kind of explain what we're doing there, which I think for us is probably going to be to compete for Angler of the Year to make the championship there. I tell you right now, that's my expectation going in, is very quickly going to be to try to compete there and compete to win early on. So I will probably come up with something related to that to tell the story. We've got our How We Roll segments, which is our kind of attempt this year to start to learn how to share all the lessons we've learned. I mean, I've been doing this for 7 or 8 years, including team tournaments in Minnesota, all the way back to the NABC. Joel's been probably fishing that long, but nationally 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
So I really do we've learned hundreds and hundreds of little tips and tricks. And, every fishing channel kind of has their own little, here's the new thing that they do on the YouTube channel. I really like kind of what we're doing with How We Roll, just kind of saying, hey, here's some things we've learned. Here's how we do it. If it helps you, great. We hope it does. So we'll continue to do those. And then I think we've got given that our series are a little more serious, kind of as we're competing, trying to win, a little more intense, we've got an idea kind of for a segment we're going to roll out. It's going to be a little bit more lighthearted. Tell a little bit of the funnier side of the tales from the road. I mean, we've got hundreds of stories that have happened over the last 6 years, just unbelievable stuff that comes up when you're traveling that much that, we really would like to tell some of those stories this year and have a little bit more lighthearted side of the channel too on some of those. So we'll probably roll those out sometime this spring and hopefully they're well received by people because we've got some pretty good ones to start. Probably involves Joel getting embarrassed, but.
Or Greg dropping his boat on the ground.
No, I don't talk about that.
We got all kinds of good ones.
Nice. We might get into those yet tonight at the end.
How much refill?
So I guess we can say kind of summarizing, bigger and better for the channel. You're going to have the Black and Blue, which is going to be the Opens. You're going to have a 2BD tournament series, which is going to be the league. You're going to still have your How We Roll, which is kind of your tips and products and quick recaps and things like that. And then you're going to kind of add some kind of vlog, storytelling type behind the scenes stuff for 2021.
And I think every year we'll probably debrief the channel. What did we do right? What did we do wrong? And how can we add value to people? What's working? What do people like? And how do we keep doing it? Like anything, if you debrief every year, hopefully we can get a little bit better and grow it. And we're not going to have any shortage of content this year with the travel schedule we've got. So hopefully we can get it produced and get it out there. So
So Banger says hi. He's on board with the Phoenix. Maybe talk about that. You switched boats this year, Greg. What's
for a lot of guys have different reasons for that. Mine was really simple. Weird story. My first co-angler experience, I went out to Lake Erie and Seth Fighter drove me out there. And I stayed with Seth, Figgy, Austin. There's a bunch of us staying. I don't know if Austin was there or not. I think Josh Douglas was there. So we're all grouped up staying there, and it's Lake Erie. It's literally like an ocean. I mean, you might as well have taken me to the Atlantic Ocean for all I knew, right? And I had a 19-foot Ranger that I was fishing the NABC with at that point. And I drew Josh day one. We went and looked at the pairings board. They didn't do text at that point. We had to go look at the pairings board still. And I look over, I'm standing next to Josh, who I'm rooming with, and I go, dude, I think I drew you. And he goes, nah. And drew him, and sure enough, he's one of the new guys at Warner's there. That was one of the first guys in a Phoenix there, and we went on a Lake Erie in bad conditions. And I, on the drive home, called Nate and said, I want to be your second or third guy to get one. Get one up, because that's the safest I've ever felt in a boat and most comfortable. And have been in one forever since then. Well, the reason I went back to Ranger is there's no Phoenix dealer in Kansas City. And when I was kind of pondering not traveling nationally anymore, there's a really good Ranger dealership here I've spent my whole life fishing out of Rangers and walleye boats up north and used to them. And it was a really comfortable boat to just have for around here. But I think from a national touring perspective, being on these really big bodies of water and with my life on the line, it was really a no-brainer for me to go back to a Phoenix. And I love the brand, love the company. The boat's super safe and comfortable, and that's all. I'm blessed as hell to be able to fish out of a boat like that.
Sure.
Travel around the country and do it. So sorry to get long-winded there. Just had a good story with Josh.
No, it's cool. Yeah, Josh is actually going to be on the stream in 2 weeks on the 20th. So Joel, why don't you slide over for a second.
Your new toy?
That's so let's tell what's behind you guys there.
That's a freshly wrapped truck that says the sickness on it.
Might be the wrong brand of truck, but
no, it's definitely the right brand. No, that's actually why I came down here this week, and we had a bunch of admin stuff to do this week. Obviously, we had to get all everything kind of booked for the year and logistically, and do a bunch of admin stuff. But just got a wrap on my truck today, actually. So we're gonna be. Greg just got his new Phoenix, like he said, and he's got his Phoenix wrapped, and got my truck wrapped today. Greg's getting his wrapped tomorrow, so we're gonna be all matching, going across the stage, or in front of the stage for the NPFL this year, running the boats and trucks through. So a little cool. We're excited, and they turned out good. Should be a fun year.
Nice, very cool. That's a good looking truck. Definitely will turn some heads, and whether people watch the channel or they think you're like extras on The Walking Dead.
I gotta be a lot more careful when I drive now. Yeah. I guess. I didn't really want to put my name underneath the window there, but I got talked into it, so
nice. We'll be all right. Now when you beat somebody to a spot, they know whose truck to look for in the.
That's exactly it.
Kent asks, how much do you guys work together? I mean, obviously you guys are traveling together and kind of the off the water infrastructure and working together and all that stuff. How much do you guys work together, and to what level? $1
million question.
Yeah. I just like to follow Kenny around, and then I tell Greg where I've been seeing him, and
whoever gets the earliest boat draw, right to Kenny's spot.
Yeah, right to Kenny's spot. No, I mean, we work together a lot. I mean, we and this year especially, I mean, with the NPFL, these bodies of water that we're going to, the new bodies of water to both of us, big bodies of water, 3 days of practice. We're going to be sharing everything. I mean, we're kind of working as a real tight knit team, and we're going to be sharing all of our information. If I'm getting bites, it's one of those things where I'm going to tell them, hey, I'm getting bites right here. If there's enough fish here, it's kind of everything's kind of dependent on what's going on, where we're, if Greg's leading the tournament and, after day one and I'm sitting in 100th place, obviously I'm going to say, hey, I got some bites right here. You go get it, So it's, I guess I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think you've seen that be successful across the fishing industry in big tournaments here lately. There's usually little pods of people that'll either room together or travel together. And the reason for that is it's I did it by myself for a couple of years, and it is a lonely road. I did it without when we had our second kid too. A lot of times I'd be on the road for, 20 weeks a year without my wife or firstborn too. And, that's a tough spot. So I think we definitely work well out there. We definitely have our challenges this year too. I mean, there's definitely been some conversations where, we're both type A guys, and you're under a lot of pressure out there. And when you get tired, you get that stuff. We definitely have some issues too that you got to work through. It's not all perfect doing that, but the benefits so far outweigh you just got to have. I mean, Rich, I'm sure you know this too, but just having good people around you is so important in life. I've got a super supportive spouse that has been up for adventure my whole life. Doesn't matter whether I wanted to start a company up in Minnesota and move back up there and live in my dad's basement when I was in my 20s. She was up for that. And I know Joel has a really supportive family and good people around him too. And so, I think having a teammate on the road is a big deal. Like, going down the road this year, we're going to a tournament and my tire blows out on my trailer. Instead of me being there on the side of the road, spending 20 minutes irritated, fixing it, doing it, Joel pulls over next to me and we knock it out in 5 minutes, and it's like it never even happened. Things like that, just having a team and a good group of people to be around's super important. But I know what Kenny was wanting to know is, how are you doing it from a fishing standpoint? I mean, to be really specific, we both are really practicing trying to find our own stuff. And first and foremost, we probably share information about bait, water temperature, patterns, fish movement. What do we think that is going to happen? And then, what's coming in, every tournament you've ever been in, nothing ever goes like what it happens in practice, ever. It's never actually happened in the history of bass fishing. It's
or what you read, or
it's
the stuff that if you go watch
what
a
happened last time we were
YouTube
here.
show online or whatever, and then you go there, you try to copy exactly what they're doing. It doesn't work. Or it hasn't worked for me. Yeah.
90% of what we're doing is those high level things that allow us to break the bodies of water down quicker and then try and make good decisions on day one of the tournament. There would be some other help to each other, like Joel talked about. That would be the exception. And I think that's the way I've seen most other really good fishing teams kind of work together. They're sharing the basic information to try and help each other all get to the same conclusion. And then there's occasionally would be a situation in which it would make sense for Joel to, if there's a spot we both kind of know about and something's going on there and I draw boat 197 and he's boat 2, well, Joel's going to go there and I got to go figure out something else. So some of that happens, but a lot of it is just those real high level. Does that make sense? It's real high level strategy stuff that having somebody to talk through that with on the water that's not an enemy is a big deal for success.
Right. And somebody that you can trust is not going to, what they tell you isn't going to be misinformation, right?
Yep.
Like it's never, they may not know the answer, right? But they're not going to tell you something that's not true, which is almost as important as,
I don't know. Did you do that this year? A couple times I thought Joel probably might have been at one point.
I mean, and not everything that we share, we do. Like at Rayburn, for instance, I was fishing brush piles. I found a bunch of fish in brush piles. Greg found them in the grass, and I said, "Dude, you got to go to the brush piles." He's like, "I found them in the grass." Well, we both ended up catching them completely different ways, but it actually helped me because as I was fishing brush piles, I actually stopped in some grass and caught one good one in the grass. And I probably wouldn't have done that if I, because I kind of ruled it out completely after practice. But I knew that Greg was getting some bites in the grass. So I said, there's some bites to be had in the grass, and I just found one little grass patch and I caught one good one, helped me out. And, just little things like that help out. We're not necessarily giving each other exact, GPS coordinates, but just being able to share stuff, how we're getting bit and that kind of stuff is.
And you're not going into it like, okay, you're going to go check out this arm and I'm going to go check out this arm. It's like you kind of both go do your own thing and you're kind of giving each other like the pieces of the puzzle, right? You're sharing like, hey, this color's working. I'm catching them on the bottom. I'm catching them on moving baits. I'm catching them in 3 feet. I'm catching them in 30 feet. Like just so that you can start to both dial it in. I mean,
right.
I do think as we get with a schedule like we have this year, for instance, though, as it, we're back to back with short practices, I do think there'll have to be some strategy given to practice. Like we have short times on the water. I'll run up the river today and go check the water temperature and see if there's if it looks good or if it even feels fishy, or you go down by the dam and then let's regroup and then days 2 and 3, we'll go do our own thing once we kind of have the water looked at. There's some things we'll have to adjust, when you don't have, like with an open, all this last year, every time we go down there, we'd have 5 days of practice. I mean, you're not really under a lot of pressure when you have 5 days. If you go out day one and a lot of times I wouldn't even fish day 1 or 2.
No, you just go drive around
just
the
go
whole
look.
lake. Yeah.
And, we're not going to necessarily have that luxury. So, I think there's always, every situation's different. And you just got to have some people around you, really good people around you that you trust, and go to work with. And things will work out in the long run if you can stick it out with that. You got good people around you.
Yeah, absolutely. And the league, right, you can talk with other anglers during practice, and right, it's not like BPT where you can't even talk fishing with like your roommates.
Right.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't institute some stuff like that at some point. I think that would make it a little bit, I don't know, it makes it harder to, it's an interesting rule that BPT's got that.
Yeah. I mean, like the Elite Series, obviously you can, as long as somebody else fishing in the tournament at the time, 3rd day, 4th day, as long as that competitor's in the tournament, you can share information, do all that. So
right. Very cool. So obviously there's some repeats, but there was a question earlier from Logan, like is there a single lake or a couple lakes on the schedule that you guys are most stoked about, whether it's for fun or because you're confident you're going to do well, or because it's, smallies or a new lake or anything like that?
I'm excited to get up north and go smallie fishing this year. We didn't
Thousand Islands.
Yeah, Thousand Islands. I've only been there. Well, I've actually never been there. We went to Lake Ontario for like a day and a half a couple years ago before I went up to Champlain for the tour event.
I think we're taken out right by Ontario too. Like we're going
closer to the lake. Yeah.
So I think that may be in play.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to going to Smalling Lakes. I mean, Oneida. I'm looking forward to Oneida. We were supposed to go there this year. Obviously, it got canceled and went to Lay Lake instead. But I'm excited. I mean, Oneida's been good to me over the last couple tournaments I fished there. It's been good to me, and I'm excited to go back up and catch some brown ones this year.
I've got two that stick out. Eufaula for the first NPFL is right before the Classic, and it's in March. I mean, if it doesn't somehow get super funky with the watercolor or level from some flood or something, I mean, that could be bananas. We're talking 30 and 40 pound bag potential out of Eufaula that time of year. So, I mean, I'd have to be, anytime I got a chance to catch an 8 pound bass or better in a tournament and catch a huge sack, when you put it on a bio like that time of year, that's going to be a lot of fun. And then Smith is about a month later. I love Smith Lake. I love the scenery. I love spotted bass fishing. They're I get a little antsy on the water. I feel like spotted bass are a lot like me, a little crazy. And I love chasing them anytime I can. I've done every spotted bass tournament I've done well in. And Smith it's prime time on Smith there in early April. That'll be a fun tournament for that Open. It'll be wide open. Those two would be my two I'm looking forward to, but really all of them are going to be fun. I mean,
right. I mean, you got to be looking forward to all of them in one way or the other, or you're in the wrong spot, right, or doing the wrong thing. But I think now I kind of covered most of what I wanted to cover. I'm sure we'll get back to some of this stuff. I see some comments rolling in, so definitely anybody that's on the Facebook or the YouTube, start throwing the comments in. We'll probably start going rapid fire, hitting Greg and Joel up with some comments and questions. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you hit that thumbs up, whatever platform you're watching on this, so we get some more eyeballs on this stream so these guys can tell their story and more people see the replay and the live show and more questions get asked. So I appreciate everybody that's in here. We're up over 50 combined viewers, so that's cool. Gabe here, he says he saw you guys fish table rock and we're catching them on finesse baits. He was impressed to see that you guys were catching them on something besides an A-rig like most of the field. So
that was fun. That was actually my first time ever to table rock fishing. We went down there. We kind of just went down there just to go fishing, just to just go check out the lake, and then we ended up deciding to fish at BFL. And man, that was awesome. That was a fun time of year. I actually did throw an A-rig a lot in practice, and I got so mad that I lost like 4 in like an hour trying to fish. Yeah, fishing the timber. And I said, I'm done throwing an A-rig. I'm not throwing another one. I only had like 2 left. And I was like, if I throw, and I didn't catch anything on them either. I lost 4 A-rigs, never caught a fish on it, and just gave up and went deep and started using my electronics and catching them on little swim baits. And I think pretty much little swim baits, but I caught most of my fish on. And
yeah, I mean, they're eating little tiny shad. Yeah, I can't make myself throw an A-rig, man. I just can't do it. Every time I pick it up, knowing I can't do it when it really counts, I can't do it.
I like throwing an A-rig, especially late in the fall up in Minnesota. It's that A-rig bite is pretty fire up there. But
didn't you lose like the state record in Wisconsin on or Minnesota on
I don't know if it's
on an A-rig that you boat flipped?
But I legitimately started crying. The smallmouth was so big, and I tried to boat flip it for some reason on an A-rig, and it broke the A-rig, and I haven't cried in a long time, and I actually started crying. So
even worse than losing at Cribbage.
I mean, I don't really lose at
Cribbage. Way worse than losing at Cribbage, dude. Like when you got one that you're wanting to put on a scale and wanting to know what it weighed.
I don't really know what it's like.
Yeah, I actually threw the A-rig for the first time in a long time when I stopped at Wilson, I think is the one above Pickwick.
Yep.
Man,
did you see that lock when you were there?
Yeah, I drove over it.
I've been up. I actually locked in a tournament as a co-angler, locked from Pickwick up to Wilson, and that has got to be one of the coolest things I've ever seen. It's like Jurassic Park in there.
I guess I didn't. No, I was fishing below the lock that was Willert of Wilson.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, I did fish the tail race in Pickwick, but because it's actually a separate channel up to the other one. I never went up that channel to the actual lock because we couldn't lock.
It's insane. I mean, you get in there and you look up and you can't see the end of the top of the lock, and it's like, well, this isn't the Mississippi River and pool 4 and 5. This is insane. I mean, it's really worth seeing someday if you ever go down there again. It's almost worth just going through that lock just to see it one time.
Sure. And but I just felt like, man, when I was driving home, like I felt like somebody beat my shoulders up with like a baseball bat after throwing an A-rig.
Oh, dude, yeah.
But Josh says, what rig are you throwing in Minnesota? I don't know. There's a Minnesota rig that What's her name?
Yeah, I so the A-rig I actually have some right over there, but I'm just throwing the Flash Mob Junior. But what I do is I put spinners on all of them except for the middle one. I just put one hook and a swim bait coming out, and my hookup percentage is awesome. A lot of people throw dummies. I just don't ever throw dummies. I don't throw an A-rig much, but when I do throw it, I throw all spinners and then just I throw a chartreuse swim bait head with a little 3-3 Kitech or whatever on it, and my hookup percentage when they hit it, it seems like they always go for that middle swim bait.
Yeah, and the other popular one is the Hog Farmer Minnesota rig, which is also an all blade with one rig. Yep,
sure. And I do have some Hog Farmers too, but yeah.
So Britt says, what business y'all running outside of fishing?
I mean, so when I was in my mid-20s, I had a chance to start a local Kansas City company here, started franchising. They were one of the largest building maintenance contractors in Kansas City. And just through some connections that my dad had from a previous business connection, we got introduced. And I got to open up one of their first franchises and came back to Minnesota and opened up citywide of Minnesota. And commercial building maintenance company. It's grown. We've grown every year for 15 years. It's been phenomenal to my family. It's been a great experience. Just like trying to get started in fishing, the first 5 years probably weren't all that pretty, living in my dad's basement at 25 with my wife. But we got it off the ground, and I probably walked into every single commercial facility in the Twin Cities myself twice, trying to sell our company to them. And from there, I've got 35 great employees that work for me right now that are sales and management people that operate and run the business and we basically help commercial properties in the Twin Cities with anything they would need, like snow removal, cleaning, any maintenance service they would need on their commercial property. We can kind of do it all and try and really provide value to people that way. But instead of them having to use a lot of different people, they can kind of narrow down who they're using to us. So it's been good to my family. Joel worked there for quite a while too, and worked with us there. And that's kind of one of the ways that we met was through that. That business and all the people that work there now, thank you, because you allow us to come out and do this and chase our dreams. So it's been a huge success there. And that's what I went to school for. I mean, I went through most of my master's program, and I was just about to finish my MBA in business when this opportunity with Citywide came up, and I dropped out of school and jumped on it. So if that makes sense.
In fact, his voicemail still suggests he works at Citywide. So
yeah, I should probably change it.
I'm gonna say the guy, our director of operations, Mitch, is up there. If he sees or listens to this, he's probably gonna be like, yeah, Joel ain't been in lately. I'm gonna have to check on that a little bit.
It's been a few months since I've been in.
Michael wants to know, so you guys have fished as co's and have fished with a lot of co's. Any advice for co's fishing the Bassmaster Opens?
I had a good run as a co-angler. I fished a few Bassmaster Opens as a co-angler. I actually get asked that quite a bit. And I was fortunate enough when I was fishing as a co-angler, I was traveling with Greg because he was fishing as a pro. One thing that really helped me out was being able to practice. I had a lot of co-anglers this year that came up and they're like, yeah, I just showed up last night. What are we doing? Tough. What are we throwing? What's the watercolor? What is there grass out there? That kind of stuff. So, one big thing that helped me out as a co-angler was being able to practice, kind of understand what was going on, what baits were working, watercolor, lures, what options there were for the boaters to go out. Is there a bite, a deep bite, a shallow bite, a medium depth bite, or is it just mostly a shallow chatterbait bite, or just kind of getting an understanding of what's actually going out on the lake, to be able to set myself up as a co-angler, knowing what to bring. And with only being able to bring 6 rods and a small tackle bag, you kind of got to have an idea of what's going on instead of just trying to bring everything and then for the first couple hours of the morning when you're actually supposed to be fishing, you're trying to tie different stuff on or actually figure out what's going on still. So
sure. So you're saying getting out and formulating your own opinion and assessment of the lake to apply is big for you.
Yeah, definitely. And bringing a drop shot and a wacky rig Cinco and a Ned rig definitely doesn't hurt either, because you're always
a lot of finesse
stuff, a lot of finesse techniques. I mean, a Cinco, wacky rig Cinco will catch fish obviously anywhere in the country, and so will a drop shot and in pretty much any other finesse technique, shaky header, Ned rig.
I think being really watchful with your pro too. I would have said everything Joel just said, and then if I was thinking while he was talking back to the days, and just being real watchful with what your guy's doing and making sure if he's missing or something, or he's not doing something, that you take advantage of that in a appropriate way. If there's certain areas or certain casts they're not making, kind of watch where that's happening, and when your opportunity comes, strike. Right, you're not going to get all the same amount of opportunities most of the time to make that perfect cast at the perfect looking stuff, but there's other opportunities to be had. And when those come, you got to be ready, and you have to be watchful and make sure when those opportunities come that you're ready to take advantage of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. Thanks for that. Logan wants to know what advice do you guys have for finding fish out deep?
Bait. Number one thing I learned in the last 2 years: fish need food. And particularly after the spawn, as particularly throughout most of the country, they need to be around a food source. And so out deep, it's bait. It depends on what you mean by deep. If you mean 22 foot deep, then you need to find structure where they can eat crawfish or bait. But as the year goes on, it seems they get more and more bait orientated. And for me,
in the fall,
for me, it's as you start getting into that really deep structure where a lot of it's, summer, fall, winter, the months where you're going to be mostly fishing super deep. That's a tough question too, because there's so many different types of bodies of water. There's river systems, there's reservoirs, there's natural lakes. So it really kind of depends on where you're at, but in some way, shape, or food, once they get done spawning and they start to go through the next 3 phases, which is summer, fall, winter, they need food. And if you can figure out what they're eating and why, and you're going to find those bass in large numbers, and you're going to find the better quality bass.
My advice is to go get some Humminbird electronics, a Humminbird Mega 360, and go find some structure out deep, and you'll be able to see the fish on your electronics.
He actually brings up a good point, which is being committed to sitting behind your graphs without fishing. I can't tell you how much better I've done in fishing since I've finally said, all right, to hell with this. I'm not pulling out a rod. I'm just going to go look around. And to me, if I can find them on my graph, that's just as good as catching them today. In fact, it's probably more fun. Would you say it's more fun when you actually find them on your graph?
I love the hunt. I love setting the hook and catching a bass, but I love the hunt.
Yeah, I've learned to embrace the hunt a lot. Yeah. Joel's taught me that a lot. Enjoy figuring out what they're eating, why, and where they are. Then you can go catch them the next day. But I don't know. Does that make sense what we're saying?
Yeah, cool. That's probably my biggest kryptonite is I cannot stand graphing.
Yeah, it was for me too. I finally got my butt kicked enough in these tournaments that I got to figure out what I'm missing.
If there's a dock, you're going to be around it, huh, Rich?
Well, I don't hate docks, but I catch a few different ways. But I'd still
I do. I don't know how to skip a dock, or I'm always hitting the dock, and then the homeowners are coming out and yelling at me, and I just get me offshore. I can't hit anything out there.
Yeah, I'll do it all. I definitely like fishing shallow, but I don't mind catching them deep. I don't mind fine fishing deep, but I end up fishing a lot more deep probably than I end up graphing, which is probably a deterrent to some degree for sure. And obviously it sets up differently. I fish mostly up north still on natural lakes where graphing has its place, but it's not nearly as dominant as it is on a ledge fishery or a brush pile or you guys know that, right? When the fish get in the grass, you still got to fish from a little bit. You can still graph around and find the holes and the turns and the points and the fingers and the clumps, but a lot of times you're still not seeing them. So you still got to, drop something down there. And so that's probably why I'm a little bit reluctant to commit to that graphing as much as I probably should. So. All right. Josh says the Deadly Nedley. So, yeah, I'm not a big Ned rig guy, but it has a place for sure.
It's definitely put a few fish in the boat over the years.
Yeah, for sure. And then, at the name of the game, when you're fishing at the highest levels where entry fees are expensive and you have a qualification path, getting bites is the deal, and you can't really let your pride get in the way of how you're going to catch them. So
that's exactly it. There's a lot of stuff that I don't necessarily like to do, but I never really threw a shaky head before I came down south. I was always kind of a drop shot or Ned rig guy up north.
Or jig worm?
Or jigworm, yeah. And I just never threw it. I never threw a shake yet. I just didn't have confidence in it. I just didn't ever throw it. And now I throw the crap out of it just because it gets bites and I don't get hung up like I would on an exposed hook. And man,
I have not caught a bass on a jigworm, I bet, in 4 years. And it just hit me how long it's been since I've actually done it. Because I mean, I cut my teeth up a decade ago on Minnetonka and gull and all that. And I mean, it's a staple. I mean, thousands of bass that you catch over time doing that. It's funny, I haven't had an opportunity to do it. Traveling south so much, I haven't got to fish many of those lakes up there. I need to get up there and get on a good. Rich, you need to get me on a jigworm bite this summer if I'm up there. If you don't mind.
But I would say I caught fish on a jigworm on Gunnersville in April.
Did you?
So I think grass is the key there.
Yeah, it definitely is.
The few times I've been around grass, it just hasn't been the right scenario.
Yeah, we didn't see that much grass this year. I mean, Rayburn, obviously, and Kissimmee, but whenever I'm in Florida, I'm not throwing a jigworm. I'm throwing a Senko or a Texas Spring Senko or a speedworm.
Yeah,
it's always a dang speedworm.
No, on those like river shoal, like those kind of side river shoals on Gunnersville where there was like a milfoil eelgrass mix. I was able to get bites on that. So it's really, I mean, it's different than the grass we have, right? And the window in which you wouldn't be flipping it or burning a spinnerbait or throwing a chatterbait around is not huge. So it definitely would be a niche at best in those lakes, but it's a tool for sure.
No, definitely.
Logan, more follow-up questions. He's, where do you find post-spawn fish on Midwest fisheries? Or where do you like to look?
So I guess by Midwest, are we talking northern natural lakes or Midwest reservoirs?
I believe Logan is from Wisconsin, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess kind of Wisconsin, Minnesota. I mean, once those fish move out, once the bass are done spawning, I mean, obviously bluegill start spawning, and they're on those bluegill beds. Some hard bottom areas, in the grass.
Bluegills and crawfish is the keys. I mean, if you can find them rocky hard bottoms where crawfish are going to be, if you can find where the bluegill spawn and then the bluegill move out to grass edges or follow the bait for those two things, that's their main forage, right? I mean, is crawfish and bluegill up there. And if you can find those groups of fish, that's where especially the better ones are going to be. Your bigger fish are going to be around those
typically. And I always like finding grass areas with the hard bottom spots in them, or moving outside of them. I spend a lot of time obviously on my electronics and finding those weed edges with hard bottom coming out of them, or the inside of the weeds. Is where a lot of those fish, tend to hang up and around those bluegill beds and that kind of stuff. So,
yeah, and bluegill beds are pretty easy to see on side imaging.
Oh yeah,
offshore.
Yeah, definitely.
Like they actually really, that honeycomb really shows up pretty bright on side imaging. So that's probably the one easiest thing to look for when you start driving around offshore along the weed edges on the natural lakes, is looking for those pockets of bluegill beds. And even if they're not on the bluegill beds, the fact that they're bluegill beds there tells you there's some kind of firm bottom, whether it's gravel or a little bit of rock mixed in. So that's just a good area to poke around in general all year, but
especially post spawn.
Yeah.
Driftless says, thoughts on chase baits? I honestly have never used a chase baits. Have you?
I'm not very familiar with chase baits.
They have some soft plastics that have some the old power bait leeches and some of those Reaper leeches that have the kind of quivering. So they have some creature baits, but then their tails kind of turn into that kind of I've not used them. They're interesting looking. I think the Evolve Vibragrub was another one that kind of looked like that and had that kind of weird kind of tail. But
yeah, I'm not familiar.
No opinion. Haven't used them. So off the water, editing wise, who's carrying the brunt of it between you two and the editing?
Well, I don't think we would even let Joel touch the computer. So
I run away.
I spent a lot of time with Sam learning how to edit really early on back last year. We were just talking this time last year. We were in Florida getting ready for the Open and filming all the black and blue intro stuff. And so he was teaching me all this, and it's a huge learning curve. So I did a lot of it myself. Pretty quickly realized that it's like a full-time job and I can't travel and be a husband and be a father and be a fisherman and run my company and do it. So, we have a gal named Abby. Abby Keeney's from Kansas City here. She's actually 19 and basically kind of interning / working for me as a assistant. And I've got enough other stuff going on with the business I run that, she's able to keep busy helping me keep things in order with my, email and keeping things logistically in order for me for my executive position, and then she's able to do all of the, being 19 years old, it's not hard for her to learn technology or to learn how to fly a drone or to learn how to edit or to learn how to do things. Like, it just comes natural. And she actually fished in high school. And actually I think won a tournament on Grand, a high school tournament on Grand, out of Kansas City here. So kind of got lucky and it fell into her lap. She's going to school for that, to a community college here in town. And she travels with us, does a lot of the, B-roll filming and a lot of the things like that. And then she'll edit. She's able to do most of our editing after the tournament's over with to get it together and going. So, I mean, for us to be able to produce the content that we have to put out to continually put that content out, there was not something the two of us could do together. Now, I still jump in and I'll help her, or I know enough to be dangerous, but she's definitely shouldering the burden and grateful to have the help because, you've seen how much work. It's just, Rich, it's just an enormous amount of work to do this, and lucky to have some help. So
yeah, she's definitely an awesome addition to the team, and she loves fishing. She fishes the East Kansas Bassmasters with her dad, and I think they took second overall this year in the team. So she understands fishing. She loves fishing. It's cool for her to be out and around all these these tournaments and be able to see a lot of the guys that she's seen on TV.
She's shy, so we haven't been able to get her to hop into any of the videos, but I think this year we'll try and incorporate her into a few of the shots and videos and get her some credit and, kind of get her involved and stuff like that. But, definitely nice to have that help. And then, from there, I basically do what I can, and we try to keep Joel from breaking stuff.
So Joel just has to stick to fishing and organizing tackle. And does he at least wash your truck or anything, or what does Joel bring to the table?
The guys,
I do have to change the oil in his motor tomorrow.
I'm not allowed to touch a tool of any kind. Like, I'm not allowed to even take the cowling off my motor. Like,
I do all the maintenance work.
So, he's, a little bit of a help there while I'm sitting over there like a computer nerd with my headset on, rocking the music, like editing, Joel's over there cranking a wrench, making stuff happen. So it's, it works.
All right. So there's some balance there. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Driftless says he bought a couple of $18 bird baits and the wings broke off. So I probably wouldn't be excited about that.
No, that sounds terrible.
Good question from Zeb here. I don't know. Have either of you guys fished Winnebago before, or the Winneconne system?
No, I never have.
Such a good story. So when I was buried in Citywide, right? Like buried in starting it. And a good buddy of mine, Jared Nicolite, came to work for me and moved up from Nebraska. And I didn't know, I just gotten to know him through work. And I never fished a tournament before. Never even fished for bass before, to be honest with you. Like, I mostly fish walleye, perch, grew up doing that. And Jared goes, "Hey, do you want to enter this new NABC thing that just started up? Do you want to go enter this team tournament together?" And I had a fish and ski boat. I'm like, "Oh, sure, dude. I'll do it." And it was the first NABC, and it was on Winnebago. And that's the only time I've been there. I think we caught 5 fish throwing a brush hog around this little pocket or whatever. But I literally neither of us have almost any experience on the body of water, because whatever I did that week, I was fishing out of a fish and ski. I didn't never really even fish for bass. So, and that was the beginning of, on the drive home from that, I bought my 19-foot Ranger, made a phone call, and we've been hooked on it ever since then. We had so much fun. And I think we were in the parking lot, and Austin and Willie were teamed up together, Willie Papa, and they pull up next to us, and Willie's breaking in his brand new Bass Cat. We're sitting there in this fishing ski, and it's like, Yikes! I think we're a little over our head here with the field quality, Jared. But we had a lot of fun, man. Everybody in the Minnesota bass fishing scene's always been awesome, particularly in that trail that year, man. We had a ton of fun, and I've just been hooked on fishing ever since then. So, only experience on Winnebago has been my first tournament. Don't think we're going to use any of that info when we show up in July. Doubtful.
I mean, you know where the ramp is now. So
yeah, maybe. I mean,
I've never been there. It's funny. I grew up in Wisconsin, and I was born and raised in Rice Lake, kind of northwest Wisconsin. Moved down to Madison, and driven by it a bunch of times, and I've never fished it and don't know anything about it. So, there's enough information out there. Obviously, Bass Pro Tour or whatever is out there last year, and there's a bunch of stuff we can watch online and that kind of stuff. But I kind of like going to new bodies of water like that, just not having any idea what to do out there or where to go, or just go out there and just kind of do my own thing. And it seemed in the past so far to kind of work for me and not have any preconceived notions. So, but yeah, long story short, I have not ever been there.
Spencer wants to know: Did you have to go mix a drink or what?
Something like that. Yeah,
he's itching. He's itching a little bit.
Spencer sees right through you.
Yeah,
it's interesting. I mean, I fished there a handful of times, had decent success. It's a very challenging, but I think it's a very fun fishery to unlock. There's so much. It doesn't look that big on the map, but it's actually quite sprawling and huge when you consider the fox and the wolf and the poigan and the Winneconne.
Yeah, we can't really talk much about the lake, to be honest.
No, I'm not giving.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a little bit of research online. Just kind of looking at it because it kind of just piqued my interest when I saw it on the schedule. And I mean, it's a massive body of water. I mean, the whole chain. I mean, there's. From the little bit of research I've done, I mean, obviously you can go up to rivers and, fish the river systems, or you can, go fish the Poigan or whatever those lakes are that go into those two river systems.
That's going to be fun to go break. Summertime in Wisconsin, I mean, smallmouth and largemouth. I mean, the guy, I think somebody asked there, do we going to focus on smallmouth or largemouth? Yes.
I have no idea. I just, from what I've done, I know that there's a lot of offshore stuff out in Winnebago that I might, if there's some offshore rock and that kind of stuff, and I can go catch and potentially win the tournament on smallmouth offshore, probably going to go offshore and go look for smallmouth. So
it's really interesting. It's like, to me, like if you took Pool 8 or Million and Mille Lacs and just kind of jumbled them all together and like spit them back out. It's kind of what it's like.
Yeah. That's what I've kind of gathered. It's one of those things where you can just pick your poison and go fish your strengths and do whatever you want. And I'm looking forward to it for sure.
But the wind is a huge factor on Bago.
It's a big body of water and shallow.
With it being so shallow like that, man, that was my first taste of something like that with that stupid fishing ski I was fishing that tournament on, dude. When we got out there and hit one of those things for the first time, I was like, well, that happened fast. It gets giantly big.
It's worse than Mille Lacs, I think.
Yeah.
So. Do either of you guys have favorite baits for the Mississippi River, and do you have a favorite pool?
I mean, I've honestly, I haven't fished Mississippi River that much. I mean, I've fished pools 4 and 5 quite a bit. Fished St. Jude, my buddy Scott and I fished St. Jude for a few years, I think 3 years. And, it just depends on the time of year. What you're doing out there. Obviously, you can go out there and kind of fish your strengths. If you like to frog fish, you can go out there and frog fish. I've always done real good on a Carolina rig. I've actually thrown an A rig out there in the fall and in the spring and had good success, or spinner bait, chatter bait. Fishing the St. Jude, we always fished in the spring, so we always did real good on jerk baits, spinner baits, chatter baits, that kind of thing. Ned rig, that kind of stuff. So I don't get down there as much. I don't live far from it, but it's an awesome body of water. I just don't fish it very much.
It's too busy.
That's probably
on Prior Lake when he's home.
What's that?
Too busy dragging jigworms at Prior Lake when you're home.
Yeah. Well, Prior's getting good now.
Logan's got some questions. He's going to fish a high school tournament down in Hartwell at the end of June. You guys fished Hartwell this year, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. It was later in the year. When did we fish? In September?
We were later.
Yeah,
No,
but I mean, you got some experience with the Hartwell herring, that system. I think. Like, what would you think end of June down that area? What would be your tips?
We were just moving. You know, there is a period of time on that body of water where the bluegill are up shallow, and you're going to win and you're going to catch good ones chasing that bluegill bite up around docks and up around other shallow structure, and it's very prominent. When we were there, they were out on the brush piles, cane piles, whatever.
Cane piles, yeah.
You know, they were coming to us from that bite because the bluegill bite was over. So if I had right now, I honestly, I'm so scrambled with the schedule we're looking at next year. I can't remember exactly when we were there in 2020.
I think we were there in September, but
for August, because we just came from Rayburn.
I could find out.
But at some point that time of year, it's going to be post spawn, and if I had to make a bet right now, it would be that there's a potential shallow bluegill bite. You can catch them shallow.
Yeah, they were the bass were definitely, there was a shallow bite before we got there. I actually talked to a local that was on the water that was fishing the tournament, and he was telling me we were kind of doing the same thing out on the cane piles, and he told me that, you know, a week or two before we even got there, that there was a really good shallow bite. Fish are up on the brim, or, you know, bluegills.
Brim, yeah, they call them brim there.
That, you know, it was a completely different bite like a couple weeks before we got there. So, you know, I mean, bass live shallow. You know, there's always bass shallow, but it just happened to be that majority of the fish when we got there were out offshore in the cane piles and brush piles. Yeah. So
I think that's a solid thing for somebody from Wisconsin going down there rather than trying to chase the herring. If you can find that brim bite, brim bed bite, the bluegill bed bite, that could be something that would feel pretty comfortable and easy to do. And when that goes, those are typically the biggest fish in the lake biting.
100%.
Yeah. Big ones. Yep.
They're not dumb.
That could be baits. It could be, you know, Senkos. Could be prop baits. Could be, you know, frogs. It could be a lot of different things depending on the water level. That could be a fun bite. So, have you fished the Madison chain, Joel?
You know, that's kind of, I did. I lived on Lake Monona when I lived down there. I lived in Monona, actually. I fished it a bunch. I pretty much stayed on Monona. Did fish Lake Mendota a little bit in Wabisa, but I just had like a little 14-foot, when I lived down there, I just had a little 14-foot John bow, basically like a 20 horse on it, and fished a bunch. Just, you know, went out after work, and then bought my first bass boat when I was down there. And then as soon as I bought my first bass boat, I actually moved to Minnesota. So I didn't get to spend as much time as I wanted to down there, but the little bit of time I did, man, I had a really good time. That's a fun fishery down there for sure. So
what would your advice? Flip the foil, fish out deep?
I always did. I forget the name of the bay where I lived. There's a bay right before you go into to Lake Wabisa. I'd always go fish. I'd always flip a beaver into the foil, and man, we had a lot of fun. Catch a lot of fish flipping the foil.
Josh has what fishing ski did you have, Greg?
It was a chaparral. I actually got it on Lake Minnetonka for my wife and I to be able to. She wanted to be able to go out and enjoy Lake Minnetonka a little bit. It was this was back when I had just started my business after a few years, so we didn't have any money, and I took out a loan for whatever the value of this thing was at one of the dealerships there around the lake. I don't remember exactly what dealership it was, but you know, we bought a nice little chaparral, little Merc Cruiser in the back, put a little, and of course I was like, "Hun, there's going to be a Minn Kota. There's going to be a trolling motor somewhere on this boat," and just, you know, put it up on top on the front of it. And I think we had that for 2 or 3 years, and did a lot of fishing on Minnetonka with it. Actually, just kind of learning the area and learning how to fish grass up there. It wasn't really something I'd done a lot, and it seems like a lifetime ago, to be honest with you, though.
That almost sounds more like a ski and fish than a fish and ski.
Yeah, there you go. Ski and fish. That's what it was. There you go. I'm sorry if I didn't say it right, but that's what it was.
Are you guys allowed to throw the rig on the league?
Doubtful.
No, we're not. We're not allowed to. I know we're not.
You saw it, yeah.
Josh says you think it's the boaters that make Pryor suck worse than Tonka.
It was crazy out there this year, man. I actually spent a little bit of time out there. My girlfriend and I actually fished. There was, I think, a Thursday night tournament out there. They'll just show up and go fish, and we went out there. Man, it was crazy this year. I've never, this is the first time in like a couple of years I've been out on Pryor, and I've never seen it that bad. The boat traffic, it was bad. It's big wakeboard boats. I mean, they're having fun and good for them, but man, they definitely put a lot of water on the back deck of my boat this year when I was out there.
Nice. Yeah. Speaking locally, like there was times like on a Tuesday afternoon at like 1 o'clock, I would try to like sneak out to like Crystal and the ramp would be full.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. Thanks everybody that came over from the Baitman stream. That's awesome. Bankston said you ruined our winning streak.
Oh, Bankston.
Banger.
So is Natalie.
Josh said he got swamped 3 times on Pryor this year.
You gotta be careful out there for sure.
Pryor's the new Tonka.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think back in the day when Pryor was really firing, probably when Joel was like still in diapers and wasn't even fishing, that's when it was truly like the little Tonka, like way back, probably even before Greg was fishing bass in Minnesota. Pryor was like a little Tonka junior. Like the weights that would kick out on the like Thursday nighters out there were just as good as Tonka back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to Paul Roush. I remember him telling me he had like 8 fish for like 40 pounds out there. I don't know if it's him or there was a bag weight in like 8 fish for like 40 pounds, something like that. He said just kick out big ones, and there's good ones in. I mean, there's 20, 22 pound bags being caught out there now, or there has been in the past year. So it's fun. It's a good lake.
So you guys have off limits at the league, so you guys are probably gonna do a little bit of fun fishing, I would assume, like as you're like on lakes adjacent, as you're like prepping, right? Because you're gonna probably have a little bit of downtime between some of these tournaments where you won't be the official practice, right? So it'll probably give you some time to do some kind of cool stuff. Do you plan to do any like filming type stuff, or is that just gonna be your R&R kind of like honing your craft time?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we don't have to do a lot of maintenance on stuff this year. I mean, it's just it's inevitable. I mean, traveling on the country fishing a bunch, you're gonna tear stuff up. You gotta always give yourself room for maintenance days and that kind of stuff, and just maintenance that you got to do anyhow. Change the oil in your motors and whatever. But yeah, I mean, we're planning on going down to Florida a little bit early. I think we're gonna. We're talking about maybe going to Okeechobee, but I think there might be a tournament down there, so we don't want to mess that up. But we're gonna go down to Florida early and go fish somewhere. I mean, it's I want to be somewhere warm before we get to really kick things off. So we'll go down there and do some filming and kind of just we're still trying to set up the schedule of exactly when we're getting to each campground and when. And we're going to have a week, between some tournaments here and there. So yeah, we'll definitely go out and try to get some filming and, try to hit places. I really want to go to some big fish factories when the time is right to try to catch some real big ones on camera and just have fun doing it. So
I think concept wise too, maybe is we're still early at this. Maybe I still struggle sometimes with like those downtimes like you're talking about there, Rich. I just need an idea, like what should we be collabing with somebody? Should we be trying to do a 1v1 versus somebody? I mean, there's just kind of a content glitch in my head where there's so much else going on. Mm-hmm. I just need a little creative help maybe with, what should we film during those downtimes? Because I do think we want to film and we'd like to, but we want to have fun with it. I just don't always necessarily, when I'm in the heat of battle out there, I'm always so wore out half the time. I don't have the energy to. Mm-hmm. So we need to come up with that plan ahead of time. So it's already planned out and we know what we're doing. And hopefully if we can get our kind of head wrapped around the schedule, maybe pick your brain after this is over with at some point too. Cause I think we should film a few things and do some collaboration with some people and have some fun. But I'd be curious what would play well or what people would want to see or how we could make that happen so that we don't have to try and figure that out on the fly. Cause once we're down there, you're just too burned out to do it.
Or you can just live stream your cribbage tournaments.
We could do that too.
I do think we should live stream more. I mean, we haven't gotten into that. You could probably teach me if you wouldn't mind teaching me a little bit or helping us with the little tip or trick on that. We need to kind of figure that out because I think we could have a lot of fun with that too. We do some giveaways.
Filming, there was a question earlier that I was meaning to pin up at the time. Were you filming when you tried to boat flip that smallmouth that broke your rig?
I wasn't. I wish I was. Oh, yeah. I was probably like 3 or 4 years ago. I was up in northern Minnesota late in the fall. It was like end of October. I think it was end of October, maybe even early November.
I feel like I could guess.
When they were, what's that?
I feel like I could guess where you were.
Yeah. We definitely do a little challenge guys trip up there every year, and man, there's always some big ones caught. But yeah, I wasn't filming. I wish I was. Hopefully I can get that back someday and get it on camera, but actually catch the fish.
So Snake River guy, I don't know if you guys have insight on this or not, or have seen this. There's been a lot of talk about sponsors dropping companies, even with, most fishing companies are, reporting record sales. I mean, if you look at inventory levels at Omni or Tackle Warehouse, you can see that, they're selling plenty of baits. There's, I'm sure when you guys went to try to get boats or spare parts and things like that this year and graphs for your boats, like there's just not a lot on the shelf. So these companies are clearly selling a lot of merch. Have you guys ran into any of that where you've seen adjustments or companies that didn't want to talk because they're talking about the recession or COVID or general, maybe have friends? I mean, do you guys have any insight?
I haven't had it. No, you can go ahead.
Yeah, coming from a business background, I look at fishing differently because I kind of see from a company's standpoint is how I just naturally look at it. I don't, and I would by no means have any great insight on the particularly like endemic fishing sponsors. As being new to the industry, I just don't, I haven't done a lot of that. But from what I can see and just overwhelming with business experience in general, there always seems to be on social media or other platforms, and just whenever you get anglers together, anglers community, there always seems to be a lot of hard feelings around sponsorship in fishing. And I think you got to look at it from, there's only a handful of companies in the entire fishing industry, right? There's not very many. There's very few. And there are, right now you got MLF, Bassmasters, and now the NPFL, plus all the other anglers that are around, plus high school, college. There is a huge influx of anglers, and there's only a few companies to go around. So, the math just there isn't that many people to sponsor 400 people. So there's only going to be a select few that are really going to be the ones that companies are going to back. And I don't think that's going to change. I think it actually makes sense too. I don't think companies are being evil or doing something wrong or trying to drop pros while profits are high. It's just for people, it's a simple business deal. There's going to be a few key people that help them achieve their goals, and those are who those people are going to partner with. And I think you're really going to have to look at a sales process for non-endemics, and that's a lot of what Joel and I look at for the future to pay for increased entry fees over time. There'll have to be a process for that. But, I don't know if that answered the question there. I think what's going on is normal and seems normal to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I know, I don't remember the person's name that said that or asked that question, but I haven't had it. It hasn't directly affected me. And I'm assuming they're talking about a boat company because there is one boat company out there that I've seen that, a lot of people aren't going back to. And honestly, I don't know. I don't really know the story. I'm sure there's a story behind it or there's a reasoning behind it, but I don't know. I don't know anything about it or
not enough to make a public comment about it, right?
It hasn't, with the sponsors that I have, they've all been great. I haven't had any issues with any of that personally. So I guess I can't really make a real good comment on it, to be honest.
You gotta unmute myself. back to kind of fishing, what would you guys say, what is your favorite or strongest techniques? Like if you label yourself, like what is your go-to or your favorite or your strong points for each of you? From Anthony.
I mean, after this year, I mean, it seems like I had a spinning rod in my hand a lot more than I expected to. But being from Minnesota, being smallmouth fisherman, I personally I like having a spinning rod, finesse techniques. I just feel like they catch big fish and they catch all the fish. You can always catch fish on finesse techniques, and they also catch big ones. So I like fishing finesse, but I don't have a problem picking up a big weight and power fishing as well.
Yeah, finesse, real short and sweet finesse. I love it. I like everything about it. Feel most comfortable doing that. I mean, I do have a lot of experience doing different power fishing stuff, and will continue to try to do it. And I know that that's certain times a year, certain bodies of water under the right conditions. You better be power fishing or you're fishing for 50th. But for the most part, I like finesse fishing. That's what I like doing.
Yeah, I do think were you throwing a DT6 on a spinning rod?
Mm-hmm. I actually learned that.
I can't do it.
It's a long story, but
what is wrong with that guy?
I can't throw a jerkbait on a spinning rod either, and it's just me personally. But
so, I mean, I got taught that by some guys in Tennessee over homemade balsas, and so once I got comfortable doing that with homemades, I got to where any kind of lighter weight, smaller crankbait fishing is. I like doing that. Anything from there on up, I'm obviously going to throw on a glass rod or do what's right. But I actually got taught doing that on real lightweight homemade stuff, and it actually works really well with a DT6. Anything bigger than that, it's obviously dumb, but I'm sure it looks weird.
Maybe like a number 5 shad rat, but anything bigger than that, I'm throwing out a big cast.
Yeah, I'm definitely not the only one though. That's kind of a little. I mean, there's a thing there. There's quite a few little of the guys in the homemade crankbait world that do that. So.
Luckily, they both have girls. Otherwise, you guys would be out of luck according to swim school. So down south.
In the south, you won't get girls.
Feel on a spinning rod.
That's funny.
That's good stuff. Yeah, I definitely want to get a girl because I got a lot of spinning rods in my rod locker right now. So
yeah,
but you got a lot of co-anglers, and that's you got your girl up in walleye country. So you were, spinning rods were cool. Cool.
I've taken a few co-angler tongue lashings about the amount of spinning rods on my deck too. A little bit of good lighthearted usually.
Sycamore, interesting. So first 60-degree sunny day in March with low 40-degree water temperature. What are you guys gonna do?
I assume we're talking, if it's 60 degrees day, sunny in March, 40-degree water, we're talking about up north again.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's probably
March. Hell, the water's frozen up north in March.
We're probably talking probably where you are. I mean, Ozark type lakes, I would guess.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, that's still like in the BFL we're at. That's still really cold water. Yeah. It's still super.
I mean,
it's winter.
Depending on kind of where I'm fishing. I mean, we were fishing 40-degree water on Table Rock last year, but I was out deep. I was out in 35 foot of water, and those fish were real tight to the bottom. I was throwing a small swim bait out there with a heavier head and getting it right down to the bottom. But I'm going to throw something like that, or else maybe a jerk bait, or something that's going to be a slower presentation and keep it right in front of their face.
I mean, 40-degree water is still really cold. Even if the 60-degree sunny day, you might get them to move up in the water column, but you're not dealing with. I mean, that's still a tough fish to catch. I mean, if you can get around them with some kind of a finesse swim bait or a jerk bait like you're talking about, that's definitely where I'm going to with that. Cover some water with a jerk bait probably because you move a little faster.
He was talking Indiana, but I think what you're saying applies.
Yep.
So you guys are kicking things off. What is the first tournament? Is down in Florida on Harris Chain for you guys?
Harris Chain, yep. It's Bassmaster. It's a Southern Open, right? I actually
first Open, yeah.
Got the schedule here. Southern Open on Harris Chain.
That ought to be wide open that time. Usually we're starting in January, so it's kind of bunk down there. that time of year in early March, it should be wide open. So hopefully, you never know. But
you said you guys are headed to Florida. When are you guys heading to Florida?
Well, we're kind of still kind of up in the air. Yeah, we'd like to go tomorrow, but we're talking about maybe doing that first Toyota series on Lake Tahoe or Kissimmee, which is at the very beginning of February. But we'll see if that works out. If it does, great. We'll go fish it. If not, we'll probably head there middle of February. Kind of get down there. It's one of those things where this time of year, we don't want to pick a specific date to get down there. We want to kind of do it depending on weather.
Yeah.
Driving the campers and the boats. Yeah, driving the campers and the boats and everything else down there. We're going to really pick our days, look at the weather all the way down, make sure we're not picking something where we're going to get a blizzard or pick snow we're going to have to drive through. We're going to just kind of ease on down there and make sure we get down there safe and get our boats and everything else down there safe without having to go through some crazy stuff. So
when you guys like on these big trips, like to Florida or places like that, where how many hours is that?
Oh, it used to be a disaster when I would drive from Minnesota. From here, it's only about 18.
Yeah,
18.
So you guys try to do that in a straight shot, or do you stop?
12, 14 hours and crash somewhere.
Yeah, we've kind of gotten good enough now where we can kind of figure out exactly when we should be going to these big cities. Obviously, Atlanta, St. Louis, Nashville, that kind of stuff. So we kind of got it timed out where we can leave at a certain time and get through these cities without hitting any kind of rush hour, and then stop. And if we're gonna plan on spending the night, we always spend the night, just before Atlanta if we're gonna hit it at a certain time. And we'll get up super early in the morning and get through it before the traffic gets bad, or else we'll make sure we get through there late at night and stop right on the other side or whatever. But no, typically, we'll probably take that one in 2 days, do it 12 hours and then get up in the morning and hit it the next day.
Yeah. My question is, so on these long trips where it is a multiple day trip, are you leveraging your campers, or do you guys just do a makeshift with the camper when you pull over? Or
we've done both. It's nice to be able to find, an RV campground right off the highway that's easily accessible, where we can plug in and do that kind of stuff. But I've definitely, when I was fishing the tour, the first year I fished the FLW tour, man, I spent some nights in the Walmart parking lots for sure with my camper. But with my Lance truck bed camper, I can put my jacks down and I can go take a shower. I can watch TV. I can cook dinner. I can do anything I want. It's no different than I got a generator on there, so I can literally do anything I want, just as if I'm at the RV park. So I got a queen size bed, and I can go to bed and wake up and cook breakfast and hit the road again. So it's a good deal.
Nice, very cool. Oh. Anything else you guys wanted to cover tonight? Anything that we didn't hit on for next year? Any news? Last call for questions from the people hanging in the chat, the 45 some of you hanging out.
No, I would like to say thanks for having us on and doing this. Joel and I have kind of kept our head down, tried to, we really haven't done a lot of this type of stuff, and we're appreciative of the invite and the ability to kind of just talk bassing for a while too. Honestly, with the off season, we've been for a month just straight working on all of the crap that you got to do in the off season. And this is kind of a nice break, man, to just talk a little fishing and have a little fun and get excited for next year motivation. So thanks for having us on.
Yeah, for sure. It was cool catching up with you guys. And I guess, for the people that are just getting in here late, make sure you go back and watch the replay later on tonight, tomorrow. We covered a lot of good stuff. We talked about their channel. We talked about last year. There was a lot of good nuggets that I think are worth catching up on. Or you can listen to the podcast. That will be out tomorrow. If you want to, search HellaBass on any podcast app, or there'll be a link down in the video description. It's a good way to catch up and get some of the nuggets that we laid out, both, YouTube channel-wise, tournament fishing, a lot of nuggets and things like that. And so I wish you guys the best of luck. We'll be following along with the Opens in the league. And excited to see how that goes.
Awesome, man.
Yeah. Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it.
Yeah. It's always everybody here to help you guys catch more bass and suck less.